happening, gang? It's your boy Retro back again with another reaction video. Yeah. Today we got another huge update. Now, you guys can probably already tell that it is going down. Just by that title alone, you guys are definitely going to want to see this one, as we're witnessing top-level Pentagon advisors being escorted out the building in cuffs after being found guilty as the culprit of the Signal chat leaks, aka Signalgate. Guys, I'm excited to get into this one, so we're gonna hop straight into it. All I ask that you guys please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and without further ado, let's hop straight into it, folks. Check this one out.
That top Pete Hegseth advisor, Dan Caldwell, was escorted from the building and is being investigated for quote-unquote unauthorized disclosure of classified information. So Fox can confirm the Reuters reporting is accurate, but the statement from the Pentagon to Fox says we do not comment on ongoing investigations. So the Associated Press has it as well. How Dan Caldwell, he's a senior advisor to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, has been placed on administrative leave and was escorted out of the Pentagon by security just today. So the officials said Caldwell's sudden downfall was tied to an investigation into unauthorized disclosure of department information. Caldwell served in the Marine Corps. He was one of several senior advisors who worked closely with Hegseth. And this is the key node in this story. He was the staff member designated as Hegseth's point person in the Signal messaging chat that top Trump administration national security officials, including Hegseth, used to convey plans for a military strike against Houthi militants in Yemen. We know inadvertently that the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine, Jeffrey Goldberg, was also in that chat. We've covered that story extensively here. So I had asked you at the time, were we going to see any scalps taken for this, anyone to take the fall for this? And remember, the Inspector General there at the Department of Defense at the Pentagon was conducting their own investigation into how this happened. And now you're hearing that Dan Caldwell, a chief advisor to Defense Secretary Hegseth, placed on administrative leave, Hal, and was escorted from the building today. National security, classified intelligence, that is your realm here. What do you make of some of these reports?
Well, I make the report. When you see somebody like that escorted from their office, and I've seen that before, where they literally come in and they take them, sometimes in handcuffs, but not in this case, but they will escort them out of the building like that. And they want to freeze their office, freeze everything, because there's an investigation. And that's the only thing you can conclude from this. I mean, they've already said, they're looking into this, but there is an investigation. It might be, I'm not saying it is, but it could be a criminal investigation as far as whatever he was doing. It's not clear. Obviously, around the Pentagon, certainly around D.C., the speculation is that this has to do with the Signal chat, Signalgate, if you will, the Signal chat thing. And it could have been, and you saw he was, Secretary Hegseth named Caldwell as his point man on this for DOD, that it could have been he provided that intelligence to the secretary. It could have been.
Okay.
And maybe that's why they're looking at him. Although I will say this, when you start peeling back the onion, if you will, as we like to say, and you start looking deeper and deeper into things, sometimes you will uncover something else where you were looking at Signalgate and then you discover, oh my, look what they did over here. And they may have sent an email or talked to somebody or shared something. It could be completely something unrelated to Signalgate. Could be something completely unrelated to the Houthis. Yeah. So we'll find out. Of course, it's always discouraging when you see it's a Marine. Yeah. But I would point out, all right, the reason we say that is because it is so rarely that you see Marines do something wrong. That's why it's such an exceptional news piece. I just want to point that out.
No, of course, and we allow for that here. But Hal, I think it's worth reiterating, and maybe I didn't reiterate the point enough here at the top. We don't know if this is related to Signalgate, to that controversy and saga that is still playing out here. What I wanted to say in the Associated Press's reporting is that Dan Caldwell, as a chief advisor to Hegseth, facilitated essentially getting the information to Hegseth, getting Hegseth on this Signal group chat. We have a live picture there at the White House. So I wanted to reiterate that point because the officials to the Associated Press did not disclose what leaks are being investigated. But of course, you know, and you were alluding to this, there's been a crackdown across the Pentagon and the Trump administration on the disclosure of sensitive or classified information. To your point, starting even before Signalgate, right, Hal?
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, I should probably clarify. He's not an active duty, currently serving active duty Marine. He was in the Marine Corps. We always like to say once a Marine, always a Marine, but he's not an active duty Marine. He's a senior aide to Hegseth, very close to the secretary, and someone with tremendous access, and someone you place tremendous trust and confidence in because of what they're doing. And that's why it's turning heads, which is what exactly is going on here. And it could be tied to the Houthis, could be tied to Signalgate. It could be something completely unrelated. But I will say with investigations, you can start going one direction and all of a sudden something will pop up and you go, what is that?
Okay.
And you start looking at that closely and you realize, now they're not going to say anything right now. And I have to tell you one thing, the fact that they're not saying anything tells me that they're trying to preserve the integrity of this investigation, which means it's a very serious investigation.
All right. Hal Kemper, we're going to leave it at that.
As we were originally seeing Reuters breaking this story very briefly earlier this week, now we've got more detail coming from the Media Research Center. This article, Hegseth advisor Dan Caldwell placed on leave for unauthorized disclosure tied to the Signal chat leak. This one just a couple of days ago. Top advisor to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Dan Caldwell, was escorted out the Pentagon, barred from returning, and placed on administrative leave. This was all on Tuesday earlier this week for making unauthorized disclosure amid an investigation into recent high-profile leaks, sensitive information. This is serious stuff, guys. I knew they were going to get to the bottom of it. It was just a matter of when, and that's why it seemed like this whole story kind of went under wraps for a while, and then boom, it all comes back out. That's because they've been doing some deep investigations, actually have done some polygraph tests on the entire agency at the Pentagon, trying to get to the bottom of this. Let's read on though, guys. We remember this was back in March. This was first brought to us. Caldwell participating in the Signal group chat discussing military strikes on Yemen. This chat mistakenly included Atlantic editor Jeff Goldberg. Inside the chat, Hegseth identified Caldwell as the Pentagon's point of contact regarding the offensive. Oh my. This widely reported national security scandal prompted a Pentagon probe of the Signal chat leak, as well as others. Recent unauthorized disclosures of national security information as part of the probe, polygraphs are being administered during the interviews in order to identify those responsible for the leaks. Like I said, guys, they're not messing around. They brought out the polygraph lie detector test in order to get to the bottom of this investigation. You're not going to sit here and beat around the bush or lie or try to fast talk your way out of this one. They're going to put you on the lie detector test to see who's telling the truth, who's not. And it wasn't just Dan Caldwell that went down in this one. Let's get to the bottom of it. Reading on, we got information identifying a party responsible for an unauthorized disclosure will be referred for criminal prosecution. So again, we're seeing a big criminal prosecutions are underway. Maybe not we didn't see him getting walked out the Pentagon in cuffs, but there will be criminal prosecutions behind this one. This is all coming according to Pete Hegseth's Chief of Staff, Joe Casper, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, of course, also promised the Pentagon will aggressively pursue leakers as it has identified the intelligence community and hold them accountable. Finally, we've seen tons of investigations coming. Finally, we're seeing some criminal prosecution, some accountability for these folks' actions. Caldwell has argued, quote unquote, that the U.S. should dramatically reduce its footprint in Europe and pull out force in Iraq and Syria, quote. This is all according to Fox News. Second Hegseth advisor, I should say, Pentagon Deputy Chief of Staff Darren Selnick was also suspended Tuesday as a part of the same exact probe, escorted out the building Tuesday with Caldwell. Selnick was placed on administrative leave pending the results of the investigation. We might even see some criminal prosecutions coming about. Then on Wednesday, Colin Carroll, a Chief Staff Deputy Defense Secretary, Stephen Feinberg, was also similarly suspended. So we got 4 different individuals being tied up in this one. We're going to wrap it up. Let's check out this clip and
I'm going to turn now to the Pentagon. And the top aide to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth under scrutiny in a leak investigation. Our Chief Global Affairs anchor, Martha Raddatz, have this story for us. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, Michael. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has been very clear that leaks will not be tolerated in the Pentagon. But this morning, at least 2 high-level members of his own staff have been kicked out of the Pentagon. Dan Caldwell has been a top advisor to Hegseth. They're in the room with him meeting with foreign dignitaries. And Darren Selnick, Hegseth's deputy chief of staff, also escorted out of the building by security personnel. Caldwell is so close to Hegseth, the secretary made him the point of contact with the White House for strikes on the Houthis in Yemen during that signal chat last month. Caldwell was on that signal chain. Of course, Hegseth himself has been under fire for passing on sensitive attack plans on the signal chain. But this leak investigation began after stories about a possible top secret briefing for Elon Musk, the deployment of a second aircraft carrier, and other leaks. Hegseth's chief of staff saying at the time they were investigating unauthorized disclosures of sensitive information, and now his own deputy and that top advisor both under administrative leave. George?
Yo, there we have it, guys. Oh my goodness. I'll tell you one thing. The Biden administration would have ran with a total cover-up. We'd have never heard another word about this leak investigation if this was underneath their administration. The Donald Trump administration, however, they don't take these kind of things lightly. Take them very seriously. This investigation has been underway from the very beginning of this, since the signal leak chat went out. Folks thought that things were going to, disappear, get swept underneath the rug, but no, this was a very rigorous investigation going on behind the scenes. Now we're seeing a top-level advisor, Deputy to Secretary Pete Hegseth, getting escorted out the building. Now we're probably going to see some criminal charges being brought about once they get to the true bottom of this, guys. I'm excited to see this one. Definitely hop in the comments section. Let me know your thoughts. The comments are open. I'm excited to hear what you guys' thoughts is on this one. Also, make sure you guys please, excuse me, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you enjoy more content like this, catch you guys on the next one week.